You can feel it before you see it, a trembling in the ground. A low, deep sound moving through the earth and up through the soles of your feet. You grip the shaft in your hand and you do not move around you. 5 others crouch in the tall grass, breath held. Eyes locked on the tree line. What is about to emerge weighs 6 tons. And you are going to bring it down with a stick for roughly 2 million years. This was not a horror story, this was Tuesday. Across 6 continents, prehistoric humans hunted animals so enormous that the modern mind struggles to fully picture them. Woolly mammoths, giant ground sloths. Irish elk with antlers wider than a small car, straight-tusked elephants standing 4 meters at the shoulder. These were not lucky kills, they were not accidents. They were the result of a hunting intelligence so sophisticated, so precisely adapted, that it wiped these creatures from the earth permanently. How did you do it? How did a 150-pound primate with no claws, no venom, and no natural armor become the apex predator of the Pleistocene? The answer will change the way you think about what your body is capable of. Let us start with the weapon. The hand axe appears in the archaeological record, roughly 1.76 million years ago. First uncovered in abundance at the site of Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, excavated by Louis and Mary Leakey, beginning in the 1930s. This teardrop-shaped stone tool was not a knife, it was not a scraper. Researchers now believe, based on the analysis of over 3,000 specimens, that it was a throwing disc, a heavy aerodynamic projectile designed to be hurled into a group of animals to stun or break bones before the hunters even made contact. Your ancestors did not just use tools, they engineered them for ballistic physics. They had no formal language to describe. But a thrown stone, however precise, does not kill a mammoth. For that, you needed something else. You needed the spear. The oldest known wooden spears were recovered from Schningen in Germany, dating to roughly 300,000 years ago. These were not crude branches, they were crafted from spruce, between 1.8 and 2.5 meters long, with the heaviest mass toward the front tip identical in weight distribution to a modern javelin. They were built for distance, for accuracy, for penetrating thick hide. Someone 300,000 years ago understood projectile aerodynamics, they just called it hunting. And then around 70,000 years ago, something shifted. Evidence from Blombo's cave on the southern coast of South Africa reveals the earliest known use of hafted stone points, smaller, sharper blades attached to wooden shafts using adhesive made from tree resin mixed with ochre. This was not a single tool. This was a composite technology, a system. The cognitive leap required to imagine combining 3 separate materials into one functional object is the same kind of abstract thinking that underlies all human engineering. Your ancestors did not just hunt smarter. They thought differently than anything that had come before them, so you had the weapons. But weapons are useless against an animal that can simply walk away, so how did you actually get close? The first method was persistence hunting. Anthropologist Louis Liebenberg spent decades studying the San people of the Kalahari and documented a technique so elegant it looks almost peaceful from a distance. A group of hunters selects a single animal, often a kudu, a wildebeest, a large antelope, and begins to run. Not fast, not in a sprint. At a jog, they follow the animal relentlessly, tracking it across open ground in the midday heat, reading the prints. The disturbed grass, the direction of dust. The animal runs ahead, it rests. The hunters keep moving, the animal sprints again. The hunters jog, and slowly, over 2 to 5 hours, sometimes covering over 30 kilometers. The animal's internal temperature climbs past the threshold. It can survive. Prey animals pant to cool themselves. But panting requires slowing down. Humans sweat. Sweating while moving is the single greatest thermoregulatory advantage any mammal has ever evolved. You are the only creature on Earth that can run in the heat long enough to literally overheat something that is faster than you. But persistence hunting has limits. It works for medium-sized prey in open terrain. A woolly mammoth in a birch forest during the last glacial maximum is a different problem entirely. For Megafauna, your ancestors used a second method, the ambush and the terrain trap. Archaeologist Gary Haynes, in his landmark analysis of Clavicera hunting sites in North America, found consistent evidence that Paleo-Indians drove mammoths into swampy ground, soft riverbeds, and narrow canyon walls. The Laner Ranch site in Arizona, the Murray Springs site, the Naco site. At each location, the mammoth bones are found in association with soft sedimentary deposits. These animals were not stumbled upon, they were herded. The hunters understood the landscape. They knew where the mud deepened, where a canyon narrowed, where a river bend created a dead end. They read the map of the earth the way you read a road sign. Once a mammoth was mired or cornered, the killing itself was methodical. Spears were driven into the vulnerable underside, behind the front leg, into the base of the neck where the hide is thinner and the major blood vessels run close to the surface. Researchers studying the skeletal remains of mammoths at the Tultepec Roman II site in Mexico reported in 2020. Found healed wounds from earlier spear strikes on animals that had survived previous hunts. These animals knew what hunters were. And the hunters knew the animals knew. It was a relationship older than agriculture, older than language as we understand it. It was a dialogue conducted in fear and patience and stone. The third method is the one that still haunts the megafauna extinction debate. Fire. The evidence is contested but accumulating. At the Pinnacle Point site in South Africa and across numerous sites in Australia, dating to the arrival of the first humans around 50,000 years ago, there are signs of landscape-scale burning, not campfires. Not cooking fires, coordinated burns that flushed animals out of dense vegetation and into the open, drove herds off cliffs, or scorched the grasslands that sustained large herbivores into collapse. Ecologist William Rudiman has argued that early human land management, including deliberate burning, began reshaping the global atmosphere thousands of years before agriculture. Fire was not just a tool your ancestors carried. It was a tool they applied to entire ecosystems. Now consider what this means for the megafauna. The mammoth steppe, a vast cold grassland stretching from Spain to Siberia, supported entire communities of giant herbivores for hundreds of thousands of years. Then, beginning around 50,000 years ago, something began wherever modern humans arrived. The megafauna died. Australia lost 90% of its large animal species within a few thousand years of human arrival. North America lost its mammoths, mastodons, giant ground sloths, saber-toothed cats, American horses and camels within roughly 1,000 years of the Clovis people crossing the land bridge from Siberia. The pattern is not a coincidence. Paleontologist Paul Martin called it the overkill hypothesis. Not a single catastrophic hunt, a slow, generational attrition. Populations that had never encountered a human hunter had no fear response calibrated to bipedal primates carrying sticks. They did not run. They were simply taken year after year, until there were no more. Here is the counterintuitive twist. The most sophisticated hunting technology your ancestors developed was not the spear, the throwing disc, or the fire drive. It was knowledge. Specifically, the accumulated, transmitted multi-generational understanding of animal behavior, terrain, season, weather, and anatomy, stored not in any individual brain but in the social group. Anthropologist Kim Sterelny has argued in his work on the evolution of cognition that early human bands functioned as distributed cognitive systems. One elder knew where the reindeer crossed the river in October. Another knew which limestone outcrop the mammoths sheltered behind in storms. A third knew that a wounded animal always circles back toward water. None of this was written down. It lived in the stories told around the fire, in the demonstrations given to children, in the songs and the rituals that encoded survival information in memorable form. Your ancestors were not just hunters. They were living libraries. So what does this leave you with? You carry the inheritance of 2 million years of this. Your upright posture, which feels awkward to you when your back hurts, is the stance that freed your throwing arm. Your sweat glands, which embarrass you at the gym, are the thermoregulatory system that outlasted the mammoth. Your ability to plan ahead, to imagine a future state, to hold a map of a canyon in your mind and predict where an animal will be tomorrow. That is not modern intelligence. That is ancient intelligence, honed in grasslands and birch forests and river crossings, sharpened on the problem of something 10 times your size that you decided anyway to chase. The trembling in the ground you felt at the beginning of this, the 6-ton shadow at the tree line. You did not run. Neither did they. Your ancestors looked at the largest animals on Earth and asked a question that no other creature has ever asked. How do we bring that down? And then they figured it out.